Got it.
Welcome to the Mindful Healers podcast. Today, we are going to have another conversation about a successful and fun coaching journey. And we're going to touch on autonomy, learning to believe you are enough, and choosing what works for you. Our special guest today is Dr. Lucy Modahl, who is a radiologist at NYU. Nothing we are going to talk about today is medical advice. And our intention is to hear about Lucy's journey with coaching over about 18 months. And full disclosure, Lucy and I haven't talked in the last 5 months, and we'd been planning to do this. And now it's an even more interesting experience because we're going to see how the coaching has settled and integrated over the last 5 months, exploring all of her new discoveries on her own. And for today's discoveries and takeaways, we're going to leave them blank and see what we discover in the conversation. And we'll give you a few takeaways at the end of things that have come up. So, Lucy, I would love it if you would introduce yourself and whatever you feel called to share about who you are and where you work, and then we'll dive in.
Great. Well, thank you, Jessie. I'm so happy to be here. It was such a wonderful journey with you, and I'm really happy to share some of my experiences with you and your listeners. So I came to coaching, I guess it must be about maybe 2.5 years ago, when I was working at my former job. I guess what you would call a mid-career radiologist. I finished my training in 2006, so now I've been working like quite a while. What is that? 16, almost 20, a little over,
Between
coming
15
up
and
on
20 years.
yeah, between 15 years, exactly. So, and I've had a little bit of an unusual career in that I did my training and then I immediately pretty much moved to Australia and did teleradiology for about 5 years when my kids were very little, and then lived in New Zealand and worked in the New Zealand system for 7 years, and then came back to the US just in 2019, and took up a job locally here in Massachusetts, where I live. And so I think I've always been a little bit of an out of the box person. I didn't really take a traditional path either in private practice or in academic medicine, but rather made choices along the way. And when I came to coaching, I was working a job where I was working full time for a hybrid private academic practice, which was a wonderful job in so many respects. I learned a lot. I had great relationships with my referrers and had a lot of responsibility. I'm a chest radiologist and was the only chest radiologist in the practice, so I had a lot of high level interactions with pulmonologists and thoracic surgeons and so forth. But I found, I think, particularly during the pandemic, when I was working less, that I was no longer wanting to work all those hours, and that the hours were just taking a toll on me. I was really in a state of having nothing left to give. I was really frustrated by things very easily. And when people would come to me with tasks that there are many tasks we have to do that we don't necessarily believe in, but we have to do. But even tasks that I was interested in doing and that I believed in and thought this is definitely part of my, sort of passion for my job, I just didn't have it in me to give. And I was actually even angry to be asked. And I think not so much because I thought they were out of line for asking me, not at all, but angry that I was being asked to do something when I just couldn't do it anymore. Sort of a, feeling of I'm in a sinking ship and somebody is asking me to take somebody on to save them or something, something like that, where you just feel unable to respond in a way that you would want to. So I was really, I was sort of I think I would phrase it, I was sort of becoming a person I didn't want to work with
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. I think
Um,
you actually said when you reached out, frustrated, reactive, and angry was how you came to me and how so many people come to me. But you
yes,
said that, like, I don't want to be this person anymore.
right.
I need to find a place where I can get back to being me. And I know you didn't want to leave medicine either. You just, it
No,
was actually in a recent podcast episode, we were talking about fit. And this position wasn't a fit for you in this moment in your life. Like, and I love actually that you were able to frame it now with all the positives, because I know when we first met, you couldn't see those. And I think that's the power of coaching, is to say like, wow, it actually did allow me all these things. And I was ready for something new. And the
yes,
other thing I just want to point out is you didn't, because we'll talk about how you changed. It wasn't that you weren't doing a good job at it either, right? You're an exceptional radiologist. I can add that in, but that it wasn't a fit and it was not allowing you to be the best version of you.
right, right. And also, those behaviors are not helpful. We work in a tough system, and I am not making it easy for people when I'm bringing that level of scarcity, I guess, to use a coaching
Yeah.
word, but
Yeah.
to say it kindly to myself. But being a burned out person is not a person that's contributing to the positive culture. So, to say the
Well,
least.
and you weren't helping yourself either. I'm just going to add.
No.
Not only were you not helping them, but you weren't helping yourself and your family and all those
No.
you loved. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm telling you about what it was like at work, but then at home, of course, I had really had nothing left to give. And I would say, I was just too tired to engage at home was probably the best way to put it, which is not, that's not a great way to be a wife and or partner and a mom and not who I wanted to be. So that's when I came to coaching. I knew I had to change sort of structurally what my life looked like, and I wasn't really sure what form that would take, whether that would mean going part-time at the same job or working at a different job. I had some parameters. My family, we have moved a number of times, and we quite love where we live now, and so we knew that we didn't want to move, and so that set some parameters for what I could do. And in radiology, there certainly are more opportunities for remote work than in some other specialties. So that was lucky for me. Uh, and so then
So
I
tell us,
started.
yeah, tell us a little bit about the journey, because I'm thinking when we met, actually, I always tell people to work on their thoughts first and then change jobs. And in you, I feel like the job change and the opportunities were already in the works. But then you had this long period, which I think sometimes we think negatively about the amount of time we need to give notice. But actually, for you, it was the perfect amount of time to do all your coaching and reframe your mindset before you got to your new job.
Yeah, and I think what you said to me, which really, even though I was already in a process of starting to look at other opportunities, uh, you said the best time to change a job is when you feel that you could actually stay at your current job. And I really took that to heart and really, my staying, I wasn't in a mindset of I'm definitely leaving. I I put them all. I was, my current job in a reconfigured state was on the, at the same level. And it was really only after I explored different opportunities and could imagine different lives ahead of me that really a choice became clear, and that wasn't the choice. But I did really try to um, think about my job in a way that I could stay and what that would look like. And even just that exercise is, I think, really helpful because it does start to move you away from the problem is the job, and which is sometimes the case, but probably not the full story.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how the coaching helped you pick a new job and like your new job and all of those things. You could share whatever you feel inspired to share today.
Well, I think one of the things we talked about early in coaching was knowing what you actually enjoy and what you like. I think, like a lot of people in medicine and in other fields, we get very used to just saying yes to everything because we think we should. And we do so many things we should do and that are good for our career and good for our future ability to be promoted or to be marketable should we need to look at another job, that we can often lose sense of what we actually really enjoy. And so I think we worked a lot on that, just really thinking about, do I like to teach? Do I like to write a paper? Do I like the day-to-day clinical work? What parts of my job do I really enjoy? And that, I think, helped me know what kinds of what parts of my job I wanted to keep and what parts of my job I was willing to let go of. Uh, and and even what parts of my job I might find satisfaction in a different sphere other than my job. So, for example, one of the things I definitely learned over my career in changing jobs was that I love to learn. I love being in the middle of a learning process of learning a new skill. And, whether that was taking on a new multidisciplinary meeting where I had to up my expertise in a particular clinical area. For example, I thought, well, if I'm going to take a job where I'm not going to have that kind of demand on me, well, maybe I can bring that out into the rest of my life. And that has been part of what I do now in pursuing other interests and learning other skills, and something that brings me a lot of joy and a lot of happiness outside of work.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the really fun things about your coaching journey is that you went through this work around changing jobs and you found a job that you love, and you were able to also embark on it, focusing on the things that you love and really sort of molding it. It's funny because you're into ceramics and like molding
Yes,
it into
yes.
a thing that has more of what you love and less of what you don't like. And no job is perfect. But I think that actually, as you showed up there and they asked you, would you like to do this or that? You had a lot of clarity from
Yes.
your coaching. But one of the things you told me as we were catching up right before we started recording this is also that, so you have this job that you love, but you also built out a whole part of you that you had sort of forgotten about and neglected along the way of all the other things in life that you love, and finding this balance of who you are as a physician and also as a human being.
Yes, absolutely. So I think once I realized the things that I really enjoyed in life and was able to accept the idea of, well, some of these things I'm going to find in work and some of them I'm going to find outside of work, helped me choose a job where I work a week on, week off sort of schedule, so I would have the time to do these other things. Um, and what I found was that, in fact, by separating out sort of a more creative side of myself, I was able to sort of define my persona at work a little bit more effectively. So I was no longer trying to be the person with all the ideas in the meeting, which was not always welcome. Um, and I could decide I wanted to be a team player, and I like to be helpful, so I could be the helpful team player. I like to get along with people and have a positive interaction. So I'm not going to be the driver of change and some of these roles that can sometimes take on, garner some negative relationships with colleagues. Those are things I didn't want. So I was able to, I don't know, I guess just really define who I wanted to be at work and how I wanted to work, and then bring out some of these other sides of myself that were underdeveloped in the medical context and really nourish them, like, creativity, also friendships and relationships that are outside of work that don't, not that you have nice relationships at work, but I also wanted to have some relationships that weren't work dependent or based on shared trauma in the medical system, or
Yeah. Well, and I think we've talked a few times recently in the podcast, and you and I have talked about this a lot, that we spend so much time um, gathering over shared misery. And so finding
Yeah.
relationships and connections where you're gathering over yoga and nature and art and, quilting and pottery and all of that actually allows a whole different part of you to blossom.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, that said, I also joined a doctor's book group for female doctors, which has been really fun, and we have a lot of laughs, and yeah, that's been absolutely wonderful. And but again, we're not colleagues. We just live in the community, and it's a many specialties represented, and that's a whole other way to bond with other physicians in a way that isn't at work, right? Where you may or may not want to share what's going on or complain about things because you're in a same work environment.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I'm looking at my notes that you shared with me at the end of your coaching, and you said that one of the best things you learned was this idea of giving yourself space to do things you love and having spaciousness to and allow yourself to be you, and realizing you have something to offer, like in
Yes.
all of the realms, not just at work,
Yeah.
but in all of the areas. And that's actually what I noticed today, is this very much grounded centeredness about who you are and
Yes.
a path that, and you mentioned this, that you've chosen, like choosing the things you want to be doing, choosing the things that work for you, and being okay with that.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that choosing has given me a real sense of autonomy too, which I've really appreciated, because I think, and that's something that can really slip away in the modern practice of
Yeah.
medicine due to the systems we're in and due to the constraints we have. And I think by giving myself space to do the things I love and to take care of myself and to take care of my family and to do my job and so forth, and also to choose a job that may not be a typical job in terms of schedule or even what I do during my job, I think has given me a real sense of autonomy and confidence, which I love. I really love that feeling.
Yeah. And trust in yourself is one thing that comes to mind here. Like, you
Oh
can choose
yeah.
that job and trust that it's all going to work out okay. One of the things we mentioned
Yeah.
closer to the end of your coaching was that you'd let go of the scarcity mindset, right? That there would be one job, or that there's sort of a fear of, if you didn't take a traditional 9 to 5 radiology job. I know no job is 9 to 5, by the way, but that
Quote
then you would
unquote, yeah.
be out of the loop, or that you would miss out on something or miss out on opportunities, when for your human beingness, that wasn't the best fit for you.
Right, exactly. And I work a late shift, so I finish up work at 10 p.m. But I think coaching really helped me know myself enough and to realize that that is a very good fit for me. So I'm tired. I'm really tired after work, and I go to bed. So
Yeah.
and now I work a shift where I just go to bed, and then I get up and can do all the things I want to do in the morning, feeling really refreshed and good and happy. Yeah, yeah. So coaching has really been, I have to say, it's been a catalyst for me in so many ways. And one of the things I think really gotten in the last few months since we spoke is a sense of, well, I guess self-confidence and a sense of an ability to bring a lot of the skills that I learned in coaching to my life without, I don't want to say, without needing help from others, because that's certainly not the case. But, like I feel like I graduated from coaching and I
Yeah.
brought these skills with me, and I see in so many ways how I use them. I use them all the time, whether it's dealing with the with a lot of family members, with teenagers going through things. Not that I coach them, but you bring the skills to be who I want to be with them in my relationship with them. So
Well, and I think
also
it's
through,
what you're speaking of is the integration. And I love that you said that you graduated, because I think a lot of people think, well, do I have to do this forever? And I will actually say that I pop back in and get help and support along the way. Like we do need a
Sure.
tune-up. It's a little bit like preventive care,
Yeah.
but that we absolutely over time, you learn the tools and then you practice them and you learn them more tools and you practice them. And then one of the really beautiful things about having you come back 5 months later, where you've been completely on your own, is that you can see how they've actually become a part of you and become just a part of the way you think. So in coaching, we're often rewiring the way that we think, and your brain has rewired in this way. So you've let go of sort of scarcity mindset. And you told me one of the things that was really transformative for you is this idea of being enough and like knowing you have enough. And I can see that that's just very much like it's a true, deep seated belief now. And
It
when
is.
when you interact with your children and your family members and your colleagues and all of those things, you bring a totally different persona, and then things around you begin to change.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Um, yeah, that concept of enough, I think, is really important, and it really applies to so many things, both in terms of, I like to think of it as, not just, am I enough, but also for me to be a whole person, I need enough of several things, right? I need enough work. I need enough creativity time for me personally. I need enough time with my family. I need enough time to take care of myself, the self-care routines, which I'm amazed at how few self-care routines I had going through medicine now. I'm like, I gotta start my routine. It's and it's so good for me. But and the balance, I think balance was one of my key words one year, probably still,
Yes.
I think I'm just always going to keep that word. But, by having, by having enough of each and deciding what is enough of each of things, I can have balance. Whereas if there's something in my life that I can't seem to have enough of, whether it's money or working enough or signing up for enough, extracurricular activities, whatever it is, it throws things out of balance. So that's sort of my broader way of thinking about what enough is, and it's really a choice. I think it's an individual, very personal choice what enough is in each of these areas.
Well, and you had mentioned to me at the end of coaching that enough was a decision, not an amount, which I love.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that there's this inner sense, and I can see it on your face, and no one, our listeners are just listening, but this idea that you know when enough is. And so when you feel that edgy out of balance, you're like, oh, well, something does need to change. I know we talk a lot in coaching about changing your thoughts as opposed to changing things, but it's actually both. And when we have the tools and clarity of the coaching and the ability to step back and say, oh, I have that sense that there's something that's not enough here, then you can actually very clearly make a change that's going to feel better when you know yourself well enough. I think
Yeah.
at the beginning, and when we first met, you were like, I just need a new job and I'll feel better. But it actually was all of these other things that needed to change. And now you have that perspective to say, oops, something's off. Let me sit back, figure out what it is. And so you don't have to forcibly convince yourself to say, oh, everything is enough, I'm just fine. You're actually thinking about like, do I need to tweak something? Do I need to tweak my thinking? Is
It's
it?
more of a question, like, sort of like, is this enough?
Mhm.
Like, wait, what does that look like? And what if it's not enough? What would I do to, yeah, what would I change? And what would that mean in terms of the other things? And yeah, it's just, I guess that's the thing. It's like a little bit more of a question and
Yeah,
curiosity too
yeah.
about these things rather than feeling like, oh, I just have to decide this is enough, in a
It's almost
forced way.
a sense of wholeness that comes to mind, or completeness, that like, oh,
Yes.
I'm good, I'm comfortable, I'm content. You mentioned actually at the beginning, we were talking about feelings, and in coaching, we often talk about the feelings you start with and the feelings you end with. And do you want to share what your feelings are now at the end of, let's just say, because I think you maybe had an 18-month journey of coaching, doing both one-on-one in different groups. And
Yeah.
I'd actually love to have you share with that. And then um, another 6 months of integration on your own. And so
Right.
where are you now?
Oh, my feelings are lucky, happy, joyful,
Yeah.
grateful, all these things, like spontaneous, So, when you say content, I mean, I'm definitely more than just content. I'm
Oh, I
really
love
happy. I'm like very happy. it's a joy. It's really, it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. And
And
I'm
so I
just
want to
really
offer
enjoying
to
it.
people just, I always like to say connect with hope and inspiration. And one of the reasons I like to bring people on to talk about their journey is that very often people come in the beginning without hope. And like the
Yes.
thought that you could have come from where you began to feeling lucky, happy, grateful, joyful.
Yeah.
And every time I ask you how you are now, you're like, I'm actually great. And I think that to think that that would be your default answer, like not just okay, is really a beautiful thing. So there is that possibility. It doesn't happen overnight.
It is. It is. And I definitely, for many years, I used to go between I'm all in with medicine to that's it, I'm quitting, I'm becoming a yoga teacher.
Yeah,
Which my husband would say, do you really like yoga even? I was
yeah,
like, it's not the point.
that's not the point. Yeah. So I think now you actually do have that balance that you
I do.
mentioned.
I
And
do. I do. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that's sort of the feeling of autonomy that I can fit these things into my life rather than feeling like I need to fit myself into these roles, which is so much harder, right?
yeah, and that's the choice and autonomy. And that there is, it's also that inherent belief that I see with people who really sort of graduated from their coaching, is that the belief that it's going to work out okay and that you can figure it out. And I know that all physicians can figure it out, but we sort of give that away when we get really burnt out and tired. It's like, no, there's no solution. I can't figure this out. And what you
Yeah.
learn is that you, of course, have all these amazing problem solving abilities, but that you can figure these things out on your own.
Yeah, you can. You absolutely can. Um, yeah, it's been a really remarkable journey, and the coaching approach is so different, really, than therapy or other models. And for me, I found it very empowering, I would say. Uh, Partly because it's very forward thinking. It's very it's sort of a skill set that you take with you. So while you have a relationship obviously with your coach, which is a
Yeah.
wonderful part of it, um, yeah, it just it feels really, it feels really different. It feels like developing tools to really approach your life in a way that you want to.
Yeah. I think that to me is I love the empowering skill set. It's not just, an hour with someone. The whole purpose is to help you become this person who can use all of this in your life going forward. And
Yeah.
I love that when we share that, especially with um, physicians, moms, and partners, right? Then we show up differently, and that ripples into all these other people and ultimately leads to much broader change than just within you.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. Um,
And do you
yeah.
have any thoughts just to share with people? I know you did both one-on-one and group, and like what why each was helpful, and or I have the sense for you that you actually enjoyed both for different
Oh,
reasons.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I think, I think the one-on-one is really good because there are some things you want to talk about that are quite personal, perhaps, that and challenges where I think that that trusting relationship one-on-one
Mhm.
is appropriate. And then the group coaching was fabulous because, I mean, certainly we were all very vulnerable in that situation too. Um, but I was just amazed at how I recognized myself in the other and other people's stories. And I think it was in hearing other women physicians going through things that sounded so familiar to me, and if I hadn't gone through it, I could imagine myself there. Had a lot of compassion for them. And I think that was really a good start for me to developing a lot more compassion for myself. It just, yeah,
Yes,
it's
that's
amazing to feel
really the magic.
compassion in
Compassion
that.
is so hard for ourselves, but we can instantly offer it to someone else.
Right. And you start to put it together, and you can also witness somebody not having self-compassion and how that is, uh, you know, hurtful for them, and you want to say you should have compassion for yourself, and you can just hear yourself. And so like I'm staring in a mirror. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I thought that was really helpful. And then certainly hearing other people's insights and light bulb moments in there, and also the solutions they found, how varied the solutions
Mhm.
they found were. So some people were really going further and digging deeper into their career, and other people were pulling back, and other people were just at the start of their, people were at all really different phases. So people were going in different directions, I think. Not everybody was saying enough is enough or something like that. But
I
yeah,
actually
so I thought that was really interesting
think
too.
that's one of the things that in medicine, and you and I are of similar generation in medicine, we were really taught that there's one way to do it.
Yes.
And not only is there one path, depending on what specialty you choose, but there's also a way to approach it. And there's a right way to approach it and a wrong way to approach your career. And there's a right way to approach balancing career and family and all the other things that might come up in a life. And I think what coaching really offers, and this came up recently in something I was reading, that we were taught medicine to think inside the box, and coaching lets you think outside of the box in this
Yes.
safe space of like, there are a million ways to be a physician and a million ways to be a mom and a million ways to be a colleague and a partner that is successful and brings joy to the world and brings good to the world. And so to be able to see that.
Which I think brings up an important idea about around judgment, right? Like
Yes.
how much you judge yourself and how much you judge others for choices they're making. And I think when you bring a lot of judgment in, then it really restricts your choices and your opportunities, because yeah, you're really stuck with that. There's one right way to be a doctor, to be a mom, to be a radiologist. And in fact, I think what I see in the job market is that there are a lot of opportunities to be different kinds of doctors. And a willingness to look at all those opportunities really opens up the possibility of defining what your job is for what works for you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. One other thing I just wanted to touch on, because I'm seeing it in my notes, and you mentioned at the end of your coaching that down days are okay and expected. And we've just painted the
Yes.
picture that like you're lucky and grateful and happy and joyful. And I like to be real and to realize that even when you've, had this very successful coaching journey, you have a new job that you love, and we all still have life. And that even amidst that, there's still down days. And so
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
curious how you use your coaching. I'm hopeful to reroute yourself faster, but how you use that to help you along the way.
Well, I do still have down days for sure. So this last couple of weeks was interesting as I worked, and then I had an old college friend come and stay for like 5 nights. And I think I finished my shift at 10 p.m. Friday, and then went and picked her up from the airport like right away. And then she was here. And then we had some other college friends come and stay Saturday and Sunday night. So it was a busy weekend, right, when we were hosting. And I think they were asking about my new job and how was it, and I said, well, it's great, but I'm not burned out anymore. Like I can go pick up my friend from the airport on Friday night and then be hosting Saturday, Sunday, and not feel like I'm great. I'm good. I have the energy for this. I want it. And then everybody left, and my one closest friend left on Tuesday, and then Wednesday I think I took a nap from like 2 p.m. till 5 p.m. Got up, lounged around a little bit, did almost nothing all day. And I said, wow, I'm having my down day today. And my husband said, well, you didn't get your down day right after your week of work. So now you're having it now. And I said, yeah, that's right. So we both are totally on board with this idea that Lucy needs a down day. And I
Yeah.
do. I often just need a day where, very, low activity levels, and it's a recovery day. And you know I think in history many have agreed that one day of limited activity is pretty normal.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think this idea in medicine, we've forgotten that. And
Yes.
I often talk about the more you do, the more you need to rest. And this
Yes.
acceptance of the whole human spirit. one of the things I love about the structure of your new job, and it wouldn't be for everybody, but that you actually have down weeks. You're like on, you have the actual like rest and recovery, and then you're on, and then rest and recovery. And it's rest and recovery for your human spirit, right? You give fully, and then
Right.
you have a break, and then you give fully, and then you
Right.
have a break.
And I think, I mean, what's interesting though is that now my off weeks are actually busier than my work weeks. So I tend to schedule very little during my work week, and recognize that I need to be resting, like on an, every day that I work, I need rest period, to work my best. And so I don't ask that much of myself. Tend to do things like, I make sure I exercise and eat well and get outside and, but fairly limited extracurricular stuff. And then my off weeks, I tend to be pretty busy, but usually there are things I really want to do, which I find are give me energy and joy. So I take I have pottery, I do a lot of my creative stuff. I do more socializing, I do more extensive, outdoor activities. And so I tend to be busier in some ways during my off weeks, but yeah, so it's interesting the whole when am I resting and when am I not resting? Like I actually have attached more resting during my work weeks.
Yeah.
But part of that is my job. I work 8-hour shifts. I don't work 10-hour shifts. So I have enough time in my day during my work week to rest. Which is not to say by the end of the week. By the end of the week, I'm done. I'm
Yeah.
tired, and I need a full on rest day during that week off. But it has been interesting to see how that plays out.
What I'm hearing in your words is intentionality. So intentionality in doing whatever you're doing, and it's that choice and autonomy. And from a place of, I will use that word enoughness, like there's no scarcity, there's no judgment, there's no doubt in there. You're like, no, I just move through with purpose, and very much a calm of, this is,
Yes.
and a clarity about what choices you want to make. That's the intentionality in there.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think and there's also like I think I have more of a focus on the quality of what I do, both in terms of, just the quality job I do, but also how I experience it. So less of a try to get all these things done as in a, big list of things, like the more the better, but more like, how can I do these things well? And what are the most important things for me to do? And so I try to marry those. What are the most important things to do and to do them well? And if I can't do both of those things, I tend to, um, well, I guess kick it down the line, but there are things I want to do, but I'll wait. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have space and time to do those things the way I want to do them later, and I'll have a time to do it. So rather than trying to fit everything in all the time. So that's a real change in the way I approach things as well.
That sounds like the trust and belief. And then also the one I love is you're letting go of the urgency. Like there's
Yes.
time in my life to do all of this. And if it isn't today, it will happen someday.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And if I
very
get to that
abundant.
down the line and I don't want to do it anymore, then that's fine.
Yeah. It's an abundant mindset. It's all going to work out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
it invites a lot of peace. So any final words you want to share with people earlier on in their journey who may be where you were when you started, or maybe partway through too? I don't know how you felt partway through, but if you had thoughts about the judgment of how fast it was going or how long it would take, or I'm just curious sort of what advice you would give people who are starting or who are partway through their journey. um,
I mean, I think it's a little hard to know how long it's going to take or what your individual journey will take because we're all so different. But certainly, if you're considering coaching, I think it was well worth my investment. I think it's really been transformational for me just as an approach. If you're halfway through and you're wondering where it's all going to lead, I mean, I think just really. Um, Giving yourself over to the process and trusting the process, I think is really the best thing to do, and to um, allow the curiosity and self-discovery to happen, I think is the best advice. And that's can be really scary. But you don't have to make any decisions right away. You can just see where it takes you. And yeah, I think that would be would be my main points.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your journey and sharing some of these pearls of wisdom. And to me, a big sort of inspiration and hope for people who are considering it, knowing you can start out frustrated and angry and reactive and not sure what your path forward is, and end up, 2 years later in a completely different place with a completely different skill set, and even and not just a completely different workplace, but a completely different life place and life approach.
Yeah. 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 And I think I told you toward the end of my coaching, I met with someone I'm related to. I told them I was finishing coaching, and they said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes, I'm sure." And now I'm even more sure, it's
Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's really it's a fantastic skill set to have. And yeah, I'm just really happy with where I am now.
And I am happy to reconnect and see you. And I love seeing the post-integration period and what that looks like. I'm definitely going to do this again at some point, because to me, it just is kind of I kind of get that touch point with people always. I'll get emails back 6 months or a year later, checking in, but even seeing someone and kind of hearing the impact it's had over that 6 months beyond your coaching experience is really beautiful. So I am grateful that you took the time, and I'm grateful to hear all the updates. And I'm actually really looking forward to hearing and seeing. Sounds like you are continuing. You mentioned continuing to evolve in your creative realm. I think that when we begin these coaching journeys, you graduate from sort of one portion of your coaching, but you mentioned going into, more creative realms and different parts of you that you want to explore. And coaching is about evolution. And I think that many of us, when we became doctors, were like, "Oh, I'm done." I'm like, no. Like, as I see it, we're just ongoing, and it just gets better and better and better with the more tools and skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so I'll be doing some coaching, I think, in the fall with an artist coach to look at where I may want to go in that realm. And so that's a little bit of a different focus, discovering a really new part of myself and learning new skills and discovering ways in which I want to go deeper into that realm. So but yeah, I think the coaching approach seems to be really a good way to look at these things.
I think there's always more ways to grow ourselves and explore. And as you said, you're a learner and learn. And so that's one of the beautiful things about this skill set and tools and way of approaching your life.
Yeah.
So with that, we will close our episode today. And if anyone has more questions about coaching, you can just send me an email, reach out. And I have a couple of small groups that start in the summer. And so now's the time, if you want to do that, to reach out and stay on after the sound of the singing bowl for our mindful moment. Thank you so much, Lucy, for joining. And I can't wait to check in another 6 months and see where you are.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jessie.